Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Potsmucker's Bible. My name is Zion. I'm the author of the Potsmucker's Bible, which contains the prophetic book of Zion, where I get my name and authority. It comes from the Ketuvim, or Old Testament of the Hebrew Bible, the Jewish Bible. I use the King James Version of the Christian Bible, however, to put together the prophecy of Israel from the scattered testimony of the Old Testament prophets. It became the Book of Zion. When I finished the Book of Zion, I found a set of instructions which I was uniquely qualified to undertake. So I did. And as the last thing on my to-do list to fulfill the prophecy of Israel, I'm required to publish a piece. And so that's what I'm doing right now on YouTube and social media. I am presenting to the world for the second time the Potsmucker's Bible and Book of Zion. Now, I had to write the Potsmucker's Bible in order to publish the Book of Zion, because the Book of Zion is written entirely in Bible verse. And it's illegal for me to publish a book that I did not write myself. So I wrote the Potsmucker's Bible as a companion, a dissertation, if you will, of the prophecy of Israel. And today I'm reading to you for the second time from the 26th chapter of the Potsmucker's Bible. It contains the 23rd chapter of the Book of Zion. It's called Behold My Servant, or alternatively, the Book of Messiah. Now, I'm going to read to you the 26th chapter, part 1. So, at last, we come to the chapter that everyone reading this has been waiting for. The chapter about the Messiah, the male Savior, foretold by the male-dominated society that we live in. Everyone has been expecting a man to come, but they got me instead. But I'm the one that did the work. However, it's him that you've all been waiting for. So, here he is. His name is Kenneth Dean Baldwin. I call him Kenny. We dated in 1977. I was 15 years old. He was 19. We fell in love. Or so I thought. He seduced me. I fell forever in love with him. He married his brother's wife. So, him, not so much. Or at least that's how it feels. But that's not being fair to him, really. His brother, Larry, was an abusive husband. She turned to Kenny for help. They ended up together. He chose the one woman on earth to marry that was forbidden to him by my God, his sister-in-law. Moses says that his vows weren't accepted by God. But to Kenny, he was married. He was doing the right thing by her. But it hurt me. You see, their marriage occurred after 1979, when God, the Gray, chose Kenny to be my savior. He was to be my husband. We had already consummated our holy union in 1979. So I was bound to him before he married her. And he had already pledged himself to me in 1979. That last night that we were together, September 8th, 1979. He branded me with a scar. He told me that as long as I bore that scar, that I would belong to him. and he therefore to me. I still bear that scar. I will always bear that scar. So, I will always belong to him. When he branded me, he pledged himself to me at the same time. That's how those things work. That night was the answer to my prayers. He was the answer to my prayers. That statement of ownership made by him of his own free will was the realization of my prayer. He saved me that night. I'm here writing this because I still belong to him. That is why when I begged God, the Grey, to kill me, they abducted him. They had chosen him for me. He was the answer to my prayers. The very first words that Kenny spoke into my mind were, I've been abducted by aliens. He told me that he was in a spaceship with aliens. That was in 1988, in March, I believe. From that time on, Kenny and I have been connected telepathically, or at least that's what he claims to be. He had forced me to live without him, however. He hated them. He hated me. But he would never let me die. He was taught how to use his telepathic abilities to manipulate my world. It sucked. It sucked great big green donkey dicks. I hated my life. He hated me because of them. But no matter what happened, no matter how much I cried or begged, he would never do two things. He would never come to be with me, and he would never let me die. I tried a couple of times to kill myself, but Kenny could at that time control my body. So we were in a test of wills every time I wanted to commit suicide. He would force me to stop. He was stronger than I was then. So I couldn't end my life. My life was his. He owned me. Or at least he did until I went to prison. Before I went to prison, I wrote him a letter. I told him about my sexual problems. I didn't mention my mental Kenny problems. He didn't respond. So, I killed him in my heart. I laid to rest my love for him. And when I was in prison, I was free of him. For 2 years, I couldn't get high. So, after the first month or so, I lost my connection to him. I could feel him, vaguely. But I couldn't hear his thoughts anymore. He was gone. Silence. And so was my unrequited love for him. When I got back home, I ran into a mutual friend. He told me that Kenny was fighting cancer for the second time in 2 years. I felt nothing. I told my friend that I didn't love Kenny anymore. I wished that he would get well, but I felt nothing for him. I had truly fallen out of love with him. I was home, and I was free. Now, you try to understand. I only knew Kenny for 3 months. I spent only half that time with him. My love for him was based on two things. We are soulmates. We have the same energy. And he was chosen for me by the Gray. He is Messiah, the chosen one, literally. When I asked God, who could I truly love? Kenny was the answer. Every time I asked that question, Kenny was always the answer. There was never any other answer. So it never mattered that Kenny is and has always been a stranger to me. He was chosen for me by my God. If I'm to be true to my God, I have to be true to Kenny. Even if I no longer love him, he is still and he will always be Messiah, the chosen one. So, love him or not, I'm still his. I have an obligation to remain true to Kenny. Because to be true to Kenny is to be true to God. God chose him. Even if Kenny were dead, I'd still be his. He would still and always be the chosen one for me. I chose God. God chose Kenny. Kenny rejected us both. The Gray chose Kenny. I accepted him as their choice, believing they were God. They gave him great power over me, and he had used that power to ensure my survival. But he had a wife and a family. His brother's wife and family, nonetheless, but still. So he refused to be Messiah. He did what he had to keep me alive, but he refused to end my pain and suffering. So I suffered by his hand. In his mind, no doubt, he was doing the right thing. But I paid the price for his sin. His marriage to Judy was a sin. Leviticus 20:20 says, it's an unclean thing to lie with your brother's wife, and to marry her is to create confusion, i.e., uncle, daddy. He thought his family was more important than I was. So no matter how much I cried out in pain, he stayed true to her until she left him. They eventually got a divorce. So my sacrifices did work. By being true to Kenny, I outlasted their unholy matrimony. But he hated me for it. I suppose he blamed me, and yeah, he did tell me it was my fault, so yeah. And it really pissed him off. So he tortured me for 5 years. He would come into my place of work and hang out with a coworker of mine, a female, his roommate. I didn't enjoy it. I was dealing with a lot of stuff, all of which was basically his fault. You see, he had total control over me for 3 decades. For all intents and purposes, he was a god. If I prayed for something, if he was in a good mood, he'd send it my way. But mostly, he just wanted to fuck me in his sleep. He has the ability to channel in his sleep, so I live in his dreams, where he is every man I meet, and everyone who fucks me in my life, he fucks in his sleep. I'm going to stop there for today. So may the great watch over you, guide you, protect you, and keep you from all harm. May they teach you right from wrong, and may you be worthy of them. May your thoughts, words, and deeds reflect truth, good, and light the unicorn way. Find your joy and pursue it, and make that your guild choice when we get to Zion. If you do drugs, stay happy and high. You have every right and reason to. Believe me, I know. I wrote 2 books about it. My name is Zion. I love you way too much to say goodbye, so I'm going to say later now.